Start with attendance. Brian? Here. John?
Yep.
I'm here. Tom? No, Mark's out. Sal is out. Mike Reese? Here. Mike Sampson?
Here.
Sadie?
Here.
And Karen?
Here.
We've got a quorum, no problem. Mike sent out the minutes, entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Karen made a motion. We want to second that?
I will.
All right, so you second. Any discussion, any changes or anything like this? No, all right, then I'll, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Excuse me, so before we jump into going into the budget, received an email from Ellie, and she raised a good point, which is our whole scheduling is not gonna work, because according to the statute, the final day for petition warrant articles is the second Tuesday of January. So we cannot. That's after we were planning to do it, because the first Tuesday in January is actually what?
The 7th.
7th, so it doesn't work. So we're gonna have to, redo our schedule. Probably just a week, I would imagine. So right now, I think we had it,
The 2nd, the 6th, and the 8th or 9th.
yeah. Right. So yeah,
But potential that we won't need additional dates anyways.
I'm hoping, right,
Because there's been changes since our last meeting, so.
well, so we had the warrant articles to be the 8th, so that would have to be the following week on the 15th. And then the public hearing on the 16th. Or no, sorry, the 17th. We're doing it on Thursday, right?
Thursday's the 16th.
Thursday's the 16th?
Yeah, Wednesday's.
Okay.
Is that what she said? I thought we had one here the week before.
We can't, if the warrant articles aren't due at the second Tuesday.
Okay, so that would mean,
I didn't read, I knew that she was upset about the schedule. So according to the law, when do we have to have our last year?
I don't know when that has to be. But I did look at section C cited as far as the petition warrant articles, and she was correct.
The petition articles is that Monday, right?
No, it's Tuesday, it's the second Tuesday of the month,
Okay,
so
so
that's
it's, yeah,
That's the 10th.
the 10th.
Oh,
No, it's
Sorry.
actually the 14th.
The 14th.
So we can't do anything. Yeah,
14th is the second.
second.
We're talking January, right?
January
yeah, 'cause
14th.
January 1st is a Wednesday, that's
Yeah.
what causes the issue.
So then we can do 15th and 16th. It's historically what we've done, the 2 days following one or two.
So we could do that for and then have the public hearing,
The 16th, we would vote on the 15th and the public hearing the 16th. Does that sound right?
we could do that, yeah.
I think that's what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
But if the assumption is we don't need the 8th and the 9th, and that I think is the assumption, because the original one was gonna be, we were gonna work on the budget on the 2nd and 6th.
Yeah.
And
But you could move the 6th to a Thursday if you want to.
6th to Thursday. Could be the.
Or maybe we'll resolve everything tonight. We'll see. And then, so Mr. Austin.
I know, I like that.
I like that idea.
Can we make it better than
Yeah, should we try to like plow through it first, Nate, and then maybe we don't need. all the
Should we just say there's no reason to meet on the 2nd now? I mean,
Technically, there would be no reason to meet on the 2nd, because if you needed 2 meetings, you got the 6th already, and you
Yeah.
have an 8th or 9th already, so.
and I'm not clamoring to come here on January
I
2nd.
second that motion.
that? Okay, so right now it's gonna be the 6th, 9th,
6th, 9th, and the 15th, 16th.
yeah, 16th, we got not to be trying to work on the budget the last second.
No,
16th would be our
budget wise, we need to be done the budget by the 9th,
Sorry, yeah.
no later than, I think we can be done,
You
The
can do it
Monday.
on the 15th.
Right.
But no later than the 15th.
15th would be warrant articles.
Right.
There's a lot of them.
But if we had a problem hanging over, we could say, as long as it's not 6 or 7.
Right,
You're not, yeah, we're gonna be down to minutia by then anyway. I mean, if there's one or two things, it's not gonna be a huge number. I think. Cause I basically tomorrow, I hope I will have all the warrant article draft off to the attorney just to make sure we got it cleaned up. And as soon as I get that back, it'll be distributed.
On Thursday, the 9th, there's at least currently, there will be a planning board meeting scheduled for that.
Yeah.
And that Brian, John and myself are on the planning board, so that wouldn't be great.
Can we take another one like that?
Well, you had the 8th as one of the days too.
He's the chairperson.
Yeah, you already had the 2nd, the 6th, and the 8th, and then the 9th.
Well, we're canceling the 2nd.
Right, but you could keep
Just
the
keep the
8th.
eighth.
We could keep
do
the
not do the
right, that's
9th.
all I was getting at, is that
Right.
if we don't have to do it on. the
Yeah, we
9th.
don't have to change anything.
Right,
What is the goal of the meeting tonight?
Well, the only meeting tonight, I think, is to work our way through the budget and get
Okay.
as far as we can until we're tired of doing it and want to go home.
And so.
Which
we had a
in my
request
mind is
from-
like 8:30, not 9 o'clock.
I know we had a request from Mike and then like an overall consensus that we were comfortable with it, you know, percentage of this much, not this much. And that percentage increase has since changed.
Oh, right, there was a,
So-
we're at 7.4% right now.
So, well, ask a hypothetical question.
Sure.
If the numbers are wrong on this summer. It won't be, I'm just saying, it is possible that the analysis on this summer is wrong. And if it is, it's not gonna be 7.4.
Is that this week's?
Came out yesterday,
Yeah,
so the bottom number is 7.4%.
Correct.
61 cents per thousand.
what you're seeing is a couple of things. One is when, and Carrie Ann, you can pipe in whatever you want. She's zooming. The comparative, there was a couple of things. One is when she was comparing on the previous summary. We were comparing to the DRA's latest number that they used for the tax rate. But that was incorrect in the context of it's already made corrections for. Like when we had the delinquent tax revenue, if we're short on revenue, it corrected for that already, so it raised it. Incorrectly, so. We went back to using what's basically the number in the approved current budget to compare budget to budget. The second item was the 169,000 was counted twice for the lease. One of those being. The fact that. We had the lease number in the line items, but when you look at the capital appropriation in the warrant articles for the highway equipment. The payment is calculated out of that. So it was in there twice, and then the other piece was another 169,000 that we talked about. Was the fact that the 169,000 for the lease was approved as a warrant article. And we are able to carry that money through because it was not expended this year. 169,000, so we were able to take that out again, so that basically there's $340,000 that came out. Plus the change for the other couple $100,000, so, and then with the changes that we made here, it added up to that much difference.
And just to make it clear why I asked the question.
Yeah.
If this is all I looked at before tonight, I would have been happy before I
Yeah.
said go. Okay. My mistake was in using the numbers we got this week for revenue and expense. And building one was supposed to look just like this. And it doesn't. So I would like to ask before we get into the budget itself and ask. Some detailed questions about it. I'd like to work on some of these numbers. To see where they came. Can we do that?
Sure.
Before we do that, I just wanted. Before we leave the topic, so. We're on the 6th, 6 PM here. If we need to, we will meet on the 8th. As well. And I'm gonna request the 15th and the 16th, 15th for warrant articles, 16th for
Public hearing.
public hearing, which means on the 6th, in order to not have to meet on the 8th, we need to vote on our budget.
Correct.
Everybody clear on that? We're good? So I'll write Ryan tomorrow and make sure we can get it on the 15th and the 16th. We already have it on the 6th, so, and I'll let them know we don't need it on the 2nd.
Right.
Okay, great. So yes, please, before we jump into the budget itself. ask away.
So Carrie Ann, are you, can you unmute?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, because he's gonna ask some specific questions about what's in your summary.
Okay.
Okay, so, I started, I just. I don't have COVID or flu even, but I do have pneumonia, so. I gotta miss it. So I apologize if you can't hear me clearly. So the first problem I ran into was coming up with the operation budget appropriations of $6,065,000. And I went through the budget and I went through the budget we just got to do it. And the number I came up with was not that, it was $6,180,498.
Are you adding the library in for Fund 2?
Well, yeah, I added in the library that's in the general fund. In the general fund, isn't there a library account?
On the software report, because all the library accounts start with 02, it totals the library under the 024511 or 4551 library total. So that gets added into the 01 total. Because the library total for 2025 budgeted is 219,953.95.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. You don't show, I see the O2 library fund, the subsidy for the library is not in a separate location, it's just in that account?
Correct. In the software for the budget purposes, just the library was only entered in the 024551. Like, I know what you're asking
That's
because
even worse from my point of view. Because I thought that the 200,000 was still as a placeholder in the general fund budget. So let me say it, if what I just heard is correct, then I get a total for the general fund budget of $6,380,000. Versus the summary sheet which says $6,065,000. And I can go through the math fairly quickly and say how I got to it. But that is a huge difference and that really impacts the picture. The other issue that I got, I only have 2 issues in the summer. That's one of them, is that my number for the general fund isn't coming out of the same as yours, and it's the same source code. And then the other issue is, we've got in the revenue side, a total of 1 million. Yeah, I got a total transfers and trust and agency funds of 1,093,000. That means that we theoretically have that much revenue coming in from the trustees of trust funds and other agencies, and I can't find that. I could find 946. So those are my only 2 issues, but on the other hand, if it's off by 100,000 in one location, and it's off by 300,000 in the other location, then the tax rate would go up another 15%. So I'd like to at least walk through the first and see what I did wrong. I'm perfectly, I didn't start it until noon today. So I'm perfectly fine with saying, yep, I'm an idiot, but I didn't find that. I mean, so far you got me, you got me to understand that I did not count the library in the general fund. That only makes the situation worse. So, you want me to walk through that? It's gonna be difficult, because
Well, I guess, I don't. So this is put together by the finance director, and this is, each one of us, and I applaud you for doing that, by going through it, but what if each one of us did that, came up with different numbers, are you gonna just go through all of our Calculations?
Let me ask you a question. What are you gonna say, or what am I gonna say a year from now? Or even next fall? When the tax rate is. $10.69. So, don't you think it might be worthwhile to walk through that part of it? It's all the numbers. That calculation there. That calculation. If you want to, look, you all vote me 9-1, it's Bruce.
I think it, again, I agree with the positive effort for doing this. And I think if we're down to just it's 3 items, really, isn't it, if you're asking into question, and Carrie Ann's here, should be something that we should be able to work through quickly, I would think, the 3 items.
Yeah, I'd like to walk through it and see what the discrepancy is. The two of them have a difference, and somebody's gonna do something different, maybe we ought to explore it.
I mean, if it's a bookkeeping item too, it's about the check and balance here. We had a change from last time, all of a sudden we were 25%, then we're not. Who's, again.
Yeah, well, last year I was right, it was 25.
But right, we got to go like, okay,
I don't necessarily totally agree with that because part of it was the $250,000 that was not collectible. That was the
Yeah,
delinquent
that's-
taxes, so that got fixed by the tax rate and the DRA. That was not an issue with budgeting, that was an issue of counting something as revenue that wasn't gonna happen.
okay, but I'm just saying about this piece of paper. We got a piece of paper that came out and said.
Oh, I understand.
Okay, so.
I'm not opposing going through this. I mean, the reality is. The rest of this meeting can't happen unless we have this answer because you don't know if you have to cut. Or add, or you don't know yet.
Correct.
There's no way to go
Concerns
forward.
I have, the rest of the entire budget is only about $150,000.
Right. So I'm saying, it's like,
Yeah.
I think that the whole thing is, this number makes a big difference, making sure that it comes from the right place.
So I thought, the way I would do it, is just ask questions about each of the lines that came into the calculation, see where they came from.
Yep, that's fine.
And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Because if it's all correct the way she has it, then this is a much easier meeting.
Right. And there's a paper trail, that's what I was just. going
Yeah,
for.
no, and I don't disagree. This is the key to the whole conversation.
Thank you.
All right, so if it's. Can you do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I started with the top line, which is operating budget appropriation, $6,065,000. Okay, so then what I started with was on page 21 of the report, which says, including warrant articles, $6,882,000. Okay, so the first number I said $6,065,000 is on the single colored document.
I don't have that.
You know, it's on page 21 of 26 of the ones you sent out.
So what's the number you're starting at, Mike, with the
$6,882,000. I'm doing everything off of.
2025 department?
Yeah.
No, not department, I was
No.
doing under BC,
Under
because I
BC.
believe that's where all the
Right,
adjustments are.
Oh, right, okay.
Are on budget. Okay, so to start with, my first question I had was, how the hell did we get this? Because it's 800,000 difference, and I see why. Because if you go above, then under the normal operating budget, not all the warrant articles. The normal operating budget doesn't have all those warrant articles. So it would not have, going up the row on page 21. We would not have the 90,000 for the fire chief, it wouldn't have the 81,000 for the maintenance tech. So that 172,000 wouldn't be in there.
Correct.
All right?
Mhm.
So that's 6,710,000.
Mhm.
Okay, then I go up on all the warrant articles, and all that stuff up there is really money going into capital reserves. I pulled it all up. Okay,
Mhm.
so 6,7 down by 500 is 6,2. Okay. Then I see 335 up above, but that it appears to be. You don't know if that's in, it may be, if that capital. So is that the fire truck? What is that? The 335,000, because I didn't know what to, I left it in there, which maybe it shouldn't be in.
That 335,000, I believe, is the fire truck.
Okay,
No, that's the CIP plan, cause the highway department's planning on buying something for 250,000, a Volvo loader,
Yeah.
and then you had
$85,000
51.
truck.
so is that a warrant article or what? Is it coming out of the general fund?
It's not coming out of the general fund, it's coming out of the appropriation to the highway equipment.
Okay,
But they would be running as warrant articles, right, to purchase the equipment from the
Yeah.
capital reserve.
Correct, there's a warrant article for running the, for
all right,
paying.
so
for it.
that still should come out, is that correct?
No, yeah, that should come out of that total list.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why the account
Probably
title
didn't
is
get it
from
right.
capital
Right now,
reserve.
it's gonna be all about trustees and trust funds, so
Right.
maybe. So then so let me just do the math quickly, so we start at 6,882,000. Okay, we take out the 529. Because that's all related to capital reserves.
Right.
And look, I'm just saying that I have a difference, so I'm trying to find where the difference is. That's all I'm
Okay.
trying to do. So that's 6,333,000. Take the fire truck out,
Yes,
okay,
and add the library back in.
and add the library back in.
So I think you're pretty close to being right on it,
Yeah, what is the number?
because you're taking 335 out and adding like 319 back or something.
So it's 5,998 and 200 and how much?
For the library. 219.
The library is. I just had it a second.
The
Okay.
library 219,953.
219.
Yeah.
So. Which, if you were me, which number would you plug in at the top line there? 6,217,000 or the 6,055,000?
Well. Okay, we were at like 6,000,002 and you took the 335 out.
The numbers I had, we started at 6,882.
Right.
I took the 529 out.
Yeah.
That brings it down to 6,333.
Right.
I took the 335 out.
Yeah.
That brings it down to 5,998.
Okay.
I put the 219 back in.
Oh, we forgot to take out the 172. That was the two other positions. The other two warrant articles that were right above it.
Okay, what?
I thought we were missing one. I couldn't, it took me a second.
Yeah, we made a department 4990 for the two additions to staff, the full-time
Right.
fire chief and the full-time building maintenance person.
Right, that's the 172, those two items.
I took them out.
But they were in your list? I didn't think, you
No,
talked about them,
no,
but you didn't, when,
You're absolutely correct.
yeah, because when we talked about it, we did talk about it, but we didn't put it in your list.
No, it's on my list, but it's not on this new one we just did.
Right.
So it comes out to 6,065,000.
It's close enough.
So, yeah, I think we're on, I think,
6,045,000, but.
Yeah.
That's just a rounding. Okay, I'm fine on that one, please. So that doesn't change.
So that answers all your questions on that one, Mike?
That answers all on the top one. Now, the question is, and it may not work, based on anything you just told me. The question is, when you get down to the 3,007,000 for the revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 3,007,000 for the revenue. And I really didn't do anything other than that today, it was just go through the summary sheets and numbers. So 3,007,000 comes from page 4 of the revenue document.
Right.
So that's everything up to the sewer fund. And what I couldn't understand is where the 1,093,000 come from. I couldn't get to that number. So let me tell you what I do have and tell me what I'm missing. And if you got it, then we're all set.
Mhm.
Then we can move right on and do everything else wrong. So the numbers I had were, police department, this is based primarily from the document, from the CIP committee. Okay, so CIP document has police department, 108,704. We don't have it.
Thank you.
I'll send you a bill.
Under control here, okay.
So police department's 108,704, and I get that from, on page 6 of the report, it says spend from capital reserve, so that would have to come from the trustees of the trust fund into the general fund. And so that one I can see. The next one down is fire department, same thing, spend from capital reserves, 18,000, do that one. I think I know what the problem is. I get down to highway, which is on page 7. It says spend from capital reserve, 407. Okay, so I see the 407. Then I see building on the next page. Government buildings, and it says expend warrant to capital reserve, it says expenditures of 292. I don't know what that means. I assume that means it's coming out of the capital reserve account. But I got a question, where is it coming from a warrant article? Where is it coming from?
It's coming from grants.
All of his grants?
Well, over 100,000 of it's grants. There's like 50,000 coming from the meeting house fund.
Okay.
Or 50 or more. Basically, the town's net outlay on that particular project, which is where these numbers get skewed looking, is $20,000. The town has to put out $20,000 in that plan, but we are gonna actually expend close to 300 in that plan, because we also have the library, I mean, the senior center roof, there's a few things in there.
I think we talked about this at the last meeting, because I believe you asked, are you going to count grants and checks that only when we know we're getting them? And we know that we're getting them.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about the big grant for the town.
Right.
I was just talking about the nickel and diamonds. Well, it's not nickel and diamonds, it's fairly expensive. So let me see if I understand it. You're gonna expend. And John, if I'm saying the wrong thing because it's not gonna be spent until next year, the following, year, just let me know, but what I'm trying to figure out is the expense in the general fund with the analysis we just did? In other words, is that 292 an expense somewhere in the general fund under government buildings?
It's under government buildings, in capital reserve fund. Is where the expense is coming from, where we have a.
Can you tell me where it is?
On that worksheet?
Yeah.
Well, technically, it should be. Where's my stamp? Building reserves,
We're getting
the
close.
actual,
It's
the
like
actual capital reserve, appropriation is 73 grand. On line 14902-10402,
Can you tell me what page? it is?
page 20. It's in the warrant articles. So 73,000 is going in, there's over 100, there's 150,000 in there right now. And most of that project is coming from non-town funds.
Okay, I counted the 73 already. So I ought to, this may be the simple answer. I ought to ignore the 292 entirely? What do I do with the 292? You're not getting that.
We're not getting it, and it's not taxpayer money.
So none of that money really, here's my point.
Yeah.
None of that money there is really gonna cover anything that's in this.
Well, okay, what I should say, because the town is actually writing the expenditure, the $50,000+ that the meeting house fund is going in as a revenue line item from their, what fund is that called? They have their own fund.
But it is,
And then we're gonna have 72,000 coming in from L-chip. We may get a moose plate. We're assuming we're getting the moose plate in this process. And then there's also, the 20,000 that the town's gonna bring in from, or the 73,000 that's coming in. So all of those funds together they are coming in and expending, but they're not all town budget line items, they're outside fund sources.
I got what you're saying,
Right.
so let me ask the follow. If. It should match,
Mhm.
okay? If it doesn't match, so let's assume this is the revenue side over here. If the revenue side is heavier than the expense side over here, using the documents.
Right.
Then that will hold the tax rate down. Okay?
Mhm.
But if the revenue over here is high, because we anticipate at some point we're gonna spend it, but we have not stated it in the expense side. That money's still not gonna be available to keep the tax rate down.
Well, what we have in here right now. Is we have a balance forward of $247,000 in the capital reserve fund. Okay, $73,000 is an appropriation. As far as a warrant article goes,
Yep, I got that.
and then we have 178,000 in grants that are coming into, some of it's for. The bridges, some of, I mean, not for the bridges, there's a couple of grants that are coming in. So
Well, I'm
that's,
looking-
so all of that is revenue. To the town, so the total revenue was correct.
I can't spend that against the general fund budget.
Because the money's coming from outside sources, that's not going into the capital reserve account, it has to be spent out of the town's fund. So the town writes the check and has to get the money, part of the money's coming from the capital reserve fund, part of the money's coming from these other outside sources.
Well, let me give you 3 examples.
Okay.
Example 1. We're gonna spend 100,000 for widgets in the general fund. The Fred Fungus Foundation is gonna give us $100,000 grant. So, and let's assume it's in the trustees and trust funds for the sake of argument. So the 100,000 is on the revenue side, the 100,000 is on the expense side. I assumed that we were gonna get. Well, let's keep going. So if this case we got, and I saw an account of the 73,000 that needs to go in. Over on the appropriation side, I got that, and I can see where it is. But I don't believe there's anything in here that comes to 272 total, is there? For that building?
Not for that building, no, the 272 is 195 plus 44 plus 15 plus 8 plus 30.
You know what that is?
Okay, 3 of them are transfer station,
Oh, yeah, okay, but that doesn't help, oh,
that's in the totals,
okay,
it's all coming out of that same fund. Okay, and then we have the $44,000 for the roof, so those 5 things together are your 272.
don't get too excited. because
I'm not excited, I know it,
counted that money,
okay,
I counted it as money that would come from the trustees and trusts.
right,
I asked you where it came from, you told me it's great, okay, and I understand it fully, and I know I'm either sick or old. Either way, it takes time to get learned. My total, kind of the police department, the 108, the fire department 18, highway 407, buildings 292, and bridge 120 was 946,000. What am I missing? Because in the colored sheet here, someplace it says we got 1,063,000. 1 million, I'm sorry, it's not there, it's included in the 3,007,000 estimated revenues. There was a line that says 1,063,000 from the trustees of trust. And I looked all over hell to see where the money was coming from the trustees of trust. The only thing I thought it might be is, I don't know who does I think it's the cemetery trustees who maintain those trusts, but it's governed by the trustees of trust funds. So I don't know if it included the cemeteries or not, but that still doesn't get me up there. It gets me to 960,000 versus 1,093,000.
okay. Just one thing, and this may answer your question, because I think I understand it. When you look under paved roads, the actual annual tax appropriation is 400,000, not 300. The expenditure, we're on the last page of the CIP grouping. So when you look, I think you used 3, you didn't count those?
No,
Because I thought that's where you said your total came from earlier.
No, because this thing is, this doesn't even have it. It doesn't say, it says expenditures $300,000.
Right, and the appropriation's 400 that's coming from
Say
the
what
other.
expenditures are coming from. I had assumed there was some expenditures in the highway account where they paid 400,000.
Okay,
Because that is in the budget.
yep.
Now, look, it's a lot
I'm
better
just-
than it was 2 hours ago for me. because-
No, I understand it. I'm trying to get my head around this,
Yeah,
so,
me too.
this is about getting it right. So, Carrie Ann?
Yep.
Do you have any clarification on the difference between the 946 and the?
I just thought I got that 1,093,000 from your CIP plan. I thought it totaled somewhere how much money was being spent out of the capital reserves.
It says on page 1.
So is that on your CIP plan that I would have pulled it from?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, under executive summary, second paragraph, it says appropriation of 1,024,195 is proposed for 2025.
Okay. What do you guys was on CIP committee?
Actually, Sal's not here.
Cause I can't find it on the charts. I just went by the chart.
Right.
Cause I might have referenced an old version of the CIP plan, cause that transfers from the trust funds. That was the number that I took from one of the CIP versions.
Well, my
'Cause this-
understanding- but
The cemetery reimbursement that has its own line. So
Yeah.
that transfers from trust and agency funds. That's only the capital reserve money coming out.
Right, that's the $12,000 I can see in the revenue budget.
How much is it off by?
I lost track. It was 946 and it was 1,063,000. So it's 50 and 60, 110,000.
But John, is this the CIP dated November 14th, is this the one that the planning board reviewed?
Yes.
Cause that says 1,024,000, and so that's, if she pulled that
No, but
number,
you
that's what
saw-
she. No, but I'm saying, this is, if she's saying I got it from this is.
The 1,024,000, that was the money going to
Yeah.
the capital reserve program.
It's money going in.
Oh, okay.
The revenue is the money coming out from the capital reserve for all the stuff that we're planning to buy, like the highway equipment and the police cruiser.
That's the money going into it.
Okay, so
Well,
That's going into the capital fund. That's appropriations, all the warrant articles.
all, what I'm talking about is under revenue statement for the general fund, which we, as said, is that the general fund is gonna receive money from the trustees of trust fund of
93,000.
1,093,000. In the report, I did count every dollar that was going. It says from the capital reserves all the way through. So the first one was spend from capital reserve, 108. Next one is spend from capital reserve, 18. Next one is spend from capital reserve, 407. That's where I got the numbers from. So that means that if it's spent from the capital reserve, it's transferred to the general fund against the warrant articles. Where it's gonna get spent, and that makes perfect sense. And that number that's in these sheets, if that's how, the warrant articles, I haven't seen those yet, so. The warrant articles could very well be 1,024,000.
No.
All I'm looking at is this document here, what says spent.
If you go to page 3 on the CIP thing,
Yeah.
that's where the number comes from, the 1,143.
Yeah, I can see that,
But it's like, it tells you each line item that was added in, so we wanna make sure they're all the same.
They're not, yeah, but I'm only got the document, this doesn't have backup to backs up.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying.
Okay.
This is where the number came from, and that would just be,
Anyway, it's $140,000 less revenue is what it boils down to when you calculate the tax rate. So this whole argument is about the 140,000.
right,
So good job. I mean, that changed it from my concern of like 700,000 down to 140,000. But before sign off ultimately on the budget, I'd like to get it reconciled so we know what that is. And I appreciate the time. I appreciate the rest of the committee letting me go through the analysis. And wish I hadn't even looked at it. But the long and short of it is, if it had been wrong, then it'd be an awful lot of surprise.
I'm glad you did it.
I'd like to go through some of the same stuff from the L chip standpoint, to make sure we got the latest thoughts in here. And you were talking about things that I couldn't follow. Where is the L chip revenue and the L chip expense for the new meeting house projects, if you know?
Well, it's all encompassed in the government buildings section, which has multiple projects in there.
So the GP account?
Yes,
So if I look in there, I don't find much. What page is that on?
Start on page 5.
I think page 6 is, you need much on page 6.
Yeah.
We'll see the electricity, you'll see something that looks like custodian, and then above that is, electrical and repair, which is a heat installation.
well, you're looking in the operations budget. This is a warrant article. That stuff's being paid out of the government buildings
Okay.
reserve account.
So it's buried in.
It's when you look at the warrant article for government buildings at 73,000 plus the 270,000, it's in there. That's where the expenses are happening.
Where's the warrant listed?
We haven't seen the one yet. have we?
No,
That's the answer, okay, we just haven't seen it.
So it's not listed on these 4902?
no,
Okay.
It'd be right on the one.
Let me give you
Like that.
Let me give you my latest thoughts on what I think the numbers should be.
Yeah.
But, so, in the expenses, it's not here. How about the revenue? Is it in the revenue?
well, the revenue, that's the part we're talking about now with the 1,143,000.
Okay, can I find the line in the revenue? sheet?
Yeah. The revenue sheet is under the transfers from trustees and trust funds, and it's, 292,000.
What page you on?
Four?
No, CIP.
Ah,
Look at the revenue sheet.
Okay, on the revenue sheet, it's not there. If you look at the number 3,007,000.
I don't care, they're not there, I'll give you what I think they should be. Carry on.
It won't be easy.
They're there, but not listed separately.
Yeah, it's not listed separately.
Okay, but it's my current opinion that talking to the contractors, that we will receive 151,400 if we win Moose Plate in 2025. That's revenue coming in. And that includes the town operating budget of 4,400, which was the match for Moose Plate. But you probably don't want to include that in the total, so.
Realistically, until it's awarded, we really don't want to count it as revenue.
Okay, so so if you're not gonna count Moose Plate, then you wanna drop that. 151,400,
Wasn't it 74,000 or something like that? It was, L-chip.
127,000. What we anticipate. No, let me take that back. We anticipate receiving 37,000 from L-chip in 2025. That's cash. We'll get you, they'll award the grant. But they won't give us the cash. They're gonna feed us the cash slowly as we complete the work.
Yeah, and my,
But with
from the planning perspective, we're gonna use the whole grant. Because the fact is that's in a reserve account, so the fact that it doesn't cut off at the end of the year makes that not really as
So you're gonna
critical.
count revenue was 74,000.
That's correct,
And you got that in your plan.
yes.
The warrant article that ultimately we see ought to have this all included.
Yes. Yep.
And you're not gonna do anything with Moose Plate. Because.
Unless it were done before January 15th.
It won't be. It's what the date.
Right, so that's why we won't count that one, and that'll be a bonus plan in the end.
February
26.
Now, on the expenses side, you wanna take the worst case and include Moose Lake?
Yes.
Okay. So-
Because to be honest with you, you know, one of the things and one of the reasons that it's critical that we use like the reserve fund for these things. This, you know, in order to make sure these buildings don't just fail, we gotta do some of this work and we might have to do it anyway over the next years. So, and we do happen to have a decently healthy government buildings fund, so if it starts to become a problem, we can deal with that.
So no, we have there's a meeting house trust fund.
Right.
And then there's a government building.
Correct.
Reserve fund. So do I put some of the money in one and some of the money in the other?
Well,
Township's going where? Government building or doing the trust fund?
My assumption is that's going to the government buildings, that's how it's budgeted. The trust, your fund that you're raising is things that we don't have to deal with, that you're basically gonna get reimbursed for the parts that you use. In the meeting house fund. Cause you're expending some money,
Why would you put all the money in the meeting house trust fund?
that's not a town-owned fund, is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
You know, we have.
I didn't either.
Like,
Yes, we do. There's a meeting house preservation.
Oh, yeah,
Forest
you're right.
restoration.
You're right.
And is that, so that's a town reserve fund? Then we can do it all out of there and that's fine.
Done with the restoration and cane preservation.
And then who expends that?
Well, Cindy and the select board.
But the select board signs off on it, then it can all go, I would rather keep it in one place. I assumed that was not a town, was not aware that was a town fund that I saw, so, okay. So no, we would do it all there then.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just hadn't picked that, I didn't know about that.
Okay, now the expense side, worst case, $151,065.
Okay,
That's talking to optimistic contractors.
Are you gonna go out for drinks with the over 300?
the reality is, and one of the things that is from a budget committee perspective. Because we have the capital reserve plan the way we're working it, and it's a long-term plan to try and keep a level of appropriations to them. What we're really reviewing is what's the appropriation gonna be to the reserve fund? It does, the actual expenses for planning purposes, it's gonna change anyway by the time we get there. But the reality is, we have $73,000 going into that fund. And if it costs $20,000 less, that's just 20,000 more that gets left in the fund that we can do other work with.
Yeah, but
So-
how does Carrie Ann handle the expenses? She pays the bills and Cindy reimburses Carrie Ann.
Correct.
Just be, it should be posted against that account.
Yeah, it'll be posted against the reserve accounts and the money that will be raised, I'm gonna have to modify that one warrant
It doesn't
article.
have to show in the operating budget.
Correct.
That's the way it was, that's how we did the repairs the last time.
Yeah.
So we had a raft.
It's all it is as far as the town's concerned, it's an in and out.
Yeah, I know it's an in and out, but it doesn't.
Well, that's why, and that's what we're having a conversation is the $140,000 or so that. Those two totals for the appropriations coming from the reserve funds and the other is what we gotta ratify.
So if, I would be happy if we just agreed that maybe between now and the next meeting, to see if we can document where that is.
Oh, no, we will definitely do that.
That's all.
My issue is for, for tonight becomes a question of. Okay, do we have to find $140,000 or are we not doing that? And we don't know yet. And that's really the question.
It's not,
I guess still got more.
Okay,
4,400 was the match on the loose plate.
Yep.
That was promised out of the 2024 operating budget. 2024 is about to expire and we're not gonna win, so.
the select board has already encumbered that $12,000. That was part of those matches.
Can you enlighten me, what do you mean by winning the Moose Plate, what is this?
Being awarded the grant.
Being awarded the grant.
essentially.
Oh, is it like a lottery or what?
No.
No, it's like any other grant, it's just
You just
winning.
apply for it.
You
Yeah.
apply for it and
So-
are we gonna win or are we the winners or the losers on the
If
grant?
I have a Moose Plate, I pay more, it goes into this fund that.
Correct.
That's correct.
Yeah. But really it's awarded, not winning.
Okay,
Yeah, 4,400.
Yep.
More exciting.
just like soccer.
Just like
youth
it's gonna be in the
soccer, everybody
2025
gets an
operating budget.
Nobody wins.
Okay.
That was a match that the select board.
No, I understand that, and we've already encumbered the $12,000, it was part of that 20, because there was a, it's not separated as a line item.
Which,
It's in the reserve, it'll be in the capital reserve fund, that 20,000,
so you're taking that out of the government buildings capital.
and it will move to the meeting house fund when this all becomes real.
One to the next crisis. I'll be back.
I'll be back.
So if we have a possible difference of $141,000. I guess I just want to do this as most, if we're gonna say, okay, we're gonna proceed with the question mark there. How do you, what does the committee think is the best way to kind of go through? I mean, there's gonna be parts of the budget, I would assume, where we're not gonna make any changes. Is that a fair statement, or do you think if we have to pull out 141,000, I just don't want to waste our time. So
You do it by departments?
I was thinking that now, remind me, do we have to, and do we have to vote on our budget? And we have to vote on changes to the budget, do we have to vote on every department line? We do not, right? We have, but I feel like that's
1 year.
that's an exercise that I don't feel like I want to go through. We don't have to do it. Because if there's no change and everybody's okay, we discussed it, then we can just move on, but if you want to make a change. Change the line items and then bottom, I think that warrants a vote. And everybody,
To do it, Ellie thinks we ought to do it, and I don't know whether she's got some RSA that'll throw a red flag on it, like.
I mean, I believe the statute just
she likes to
says,
Vote department by department.
the statute just says the budget committee shall vote on a budget. I don't believe it goes into detail as
I
far
don't
as.
believe that we've done that in the past when I chaired the.
We do it at
committee.
the public hearing.
Right,
Okay,
we announced
that's
it.
okay.
Yeah, we go through it.
But
You know, after we've already kind of put it together.
Yeah, but the budget, we're actually, we can vote on it as a budget.
Yeah.
But it would be like, I moved that we approve the budget as amended. But then all the individual line items have to be in
Oh, no, I know that.
there. So it's, for me, it's the same. It's not that there's a separate vote for each line.
And when you say individual line item, department total is your line item you're talking about, I would
No, so
assume?
like, government buildings, EOC repairs and maintenance has a line item, it's $10,000. We don't vote on those.
Right.
We don't even vote,
So-
we have voted on like general government buildings, 128,000. We have done it that way.
Bottom line, yes, we've done that.
why don't we just go page by page?
bottom line of each answer.
Why don't we just say page 1? Is there anything that someone does not agree with on page 1?
That's what I think, you know, because we have to go back and start cutting out 140, well, I would imagine. We might ask you like we did last time.
Well, Mike said there were like 5 areas that he identified. He was going to email us ahead of time. I don't, and
Yeah, I
wasn't
talked to
included.
Mike about it and we knew there was more coming. And I decided to wait until after we got the new stuff tonight, because it makes a difference when I'm looking for $500,000 in cuts, and when I'm looking for $100,000 in cuts. So here's the example, if we're looking for 700,000, you got 3 new full-time positions, plus
Well,
benefits.
Let's
I'd look at that.
go page by page.
Well, and just so everybody sees, like, this is nice, you put together this
Yeah.
summary of
Mhm.
what we've done.
Yeah.
We all got our different notes, but this is what was done and then incorporated for each next meeting, so
Right.
everybody has that. Page shows the changes that were made.
And then I believe, Nate, that there's still one question that needs to be answered on the back of this one here.
Maintenance position.
Full-time meeting.
Well, the maintenance position is included in your totals right now, so if we are okay, because I know the answer to the question right now. I said that we need when we go to full-time, it was separated as a warrant article temporarily, but it should be in the regular budget. So if we're fine to find $140,000, that may affect that answer, but the fact is, it should be just in the operating budget. It's part of the whole picture. It's already in there.
So for me, I read this thing as being a separate warrant article for fire chief and a separate warrant article for maintenance.
Right.
Is that gonna happen that way?
Well, that's what the question is we think the maintenance position is a position that used to exist. We're changing it back to full-time. It could be just incorporated into the budget. It will have no net effect on the bottom line numbers unless we have to find cuts, and that happens to be one of them. So that's really the only question is where, how do we present that item at the end? The fire department, the fire chief is not even a question because it's an RSA change.
And I think it's chief of services, right?
Yeah, but it's still, it's an RSA change where the fire chief goes from work being the head of a volunteer fire department to a town position where it becomes a town employee. It's a very different setup and it's actually a modification. So that one has to be a warrant article. So it was just, that was the question, but you know, to be honest, I mean, with the exception of the question that that Mike has for $140,000, everybody's kind of okay if we're in this ballpark unless we just have to find this one item. And it's like, okay, do you guys want to go through and see if there's any other issues, or do we just punt until the next meeting and we bring you all the final
I
numbers?
still have another question.
Okay, well, I wasn't trying to end the meeting. I'm just saying in a general conversation.
So we had a warrant article to change the fire chief to a full-time position,
Yes.
correct?
Well, no, it's a change from a volunteer position to a town employee position, which is actually a change in the RSA.
Right, so, but is the salary changed at all?
For that item,
Mhm.
yes. That's
So if
included
the-
in this.
So if the warrant article is rejected, how does that affect the,
It means we're staying with a part-time fire chief,
and we'll spend less?
correct? But
But we have the full amount in the budget,
that's correct.
so the
Right now, if you look at the summary sheet, that's all included.
Yeah, should-
So the goal is, you know, and that's one that I think we're gonna have to find a way to make sure we keep, simply because it's a function issue more than it is a cost
I
issue.
would be surprised if it's turned down, but I
Right.
just wondered what the money implication was.
Yeah, the money implication is because I think was it 88,000 or something like that.
I-
That will just go away and we keep functioning as we are.
But we have the full amount in this budget.
That's correct.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
That number 90,698,
Yes,
that's the number, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the difference in the pay scale, the number of hours, and also adding benefits.
Benefits, right. And is that's gonna be spelled out in the warrant?
That's correct.
So that you can see the different types of, expenses that are income or that make up the 90.
Correct.
The way that sorry, Nate, did you want to move on with something?
Are we still on the same issue?
Well, I mean, it's not a budget committee issue, but I just want to let everyone know the way that the RSA is now for the fire chief. It has to be somebody that's in the department. That the department unanimous votes to put forward and the select board has to approve. And we're in a position where we don't have anyone that's willing to do that right now. Bill came back, but he made it clear that it was very temporary.
That's what the RSA says about a part-time chief.
That's what the fire department voted in as their RSA back in the 80s. So that's why we're.
Yeah, the town can't go out and just hire anybody.
Chief forever.
With this warrant article, it would have
It,
supersede that vote by the.
that is correct. It will actually replace that original warrant article and the town will be able to go out and actually advertise and hire.
we purposely spent 5 years building it up, so it was a paid full-time position.
Well, the fire chief technically wasn't the position. It was a combination of four things.
Agreed.
Right.
Great, but the bottom line was. We understood we needed a full-time person running it.
Yeah.
We understood it for at least 10 years. Okay. The voters had said, no, you can't have it. All right, so then we built it up over time and split it between the departments to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that the voters would not go back to the previous thinking from 15, 20 years ago, saying. No, we don't want a full-time fire chief, because that would be suicidal for the department.
Right.
So. I'm just worried about that particular set of consequences.
Recall that being presented to the voters in the 20+ years that I've lived here.
Well, it's in there.
And bottom line is, right now, we have no one to fill that position. If we.
I mean, we're in a need-based situation, and I think it's gonna be a matter of educating the public, and I think, I believe that this year we will be having a reasonable increase in the taxes. It's not gonna be a dramatic increase, and that's included within it, and I think we'll be okay. We just gotta figure out this $140,000.
That's something that can be described in the warrant. It's too long for the warrant, isn't it?
Well, we also get an explanation paragraph we put in the book, and we're also gonna send that
Well, it's important.
out and around when,
Let me ask you a dumb question. Do you need, if the budget committee was, saying, yeah, that'll be the budget, within the budget is 90,000. Do you need to get a warrant article?
Yes, because of the RSA change. However, if the budget committee were to say, we're putting it in the budget, and then all we do is put in the function change, because right now, technically you have to wait a year from when this is approved to have it be in that function. But the fire department has already said they will support this. They will be in, they're gonna have people on the committee to hire. We would be able to hire early. We just have to change the RSA. If you guys wanna put it into the budget from a money perspective, then it just becomes an RSA change.
When you say RSA, I mean, those are the statutes that are already there, so there's
Yes.
options within the statute.
There's one for volunteer fire departments, and there's one for paid people,
So we want to shift to a paid
Yeah.
paid chief,
Yeah.
chief versus volunteer.
correct,
Just on the chief.
just on the chief.
As long as we have new generation voters, that should be understandable. That's.
I mean, if the budget committee, I would argue that if we are going to be in this 7 to 10% range and we're okay with the budget, having it in the operations budget and only dealing with the RSA change to allow the town to be able to go out and hire somebody from outside may be a much easier pill to swallow.
I think I would initially agree, but my question is, the fire department members now, do they support this?
Yes.
As much as we do?
To the point
So,
that,
could that be in the explanation of like, oh, well, a yes vote means this, and no
Yes.
vote means that, then I would strongly recommend we look at putting it in the budget.
yeah, we got,
Take that
again,
off.
this is the $140,000 question, and after we're done that, it's just, okay, what's in, what's out?
Then
And we just
ask
do the
voters
RSA
if they
change, and it
approve
becomes
making
very
it a
simple.
full-time position. And then say the budget committee
Because
recommends,
technically-
the select board recommends, the fire department
Correct. The
recommends.
fire department's key.
Technically, as it stands today, we have an interim chief in the EMS side right now, who is a retired EMS fire chief. He's done all of this. He's actually helped 15 towns with this transition. The fire department has asked him to become a member so that they can make him the interim chief there as well. We actually may have a part-time person in this position we're gonna create, which would mean that philosophy, and we go out and hire someone from the outside, the fire department in this context, sometime later next spring, would have to actually put that person forward to the select board, have them accepted. And then the next March meeting, it would become official. But they're all on board with that at this point. There's actually, as far as I know, no dissent in this move.
I mean, I think that the way the town's been going since I've been, I mean, we used to have an elected police chief, we used to have an elected road agent.
Yeah.
And I believe the townspeople are astute enough to recognize that that really limits
Yeah.
the pool of applicants. I mean, if you're to be elected, you can live here. I mean, our police chief lives in Enfield, right? I don't know where our road agent lives, maybe in
Canaan.
Canada, so, but I think recognizing that people move around a lot, I think there'd be support for it as long as it.
Well, and like I said, if we,
Budget bust.
once we resolve this one item in the money, I firmly believe putting it all together, it'll have tremendous support. We just have to finish the rest of the budget at this point.
And they were in flux for a year, almost a year, and Hugh did a great job holding it together, but he worked the full-time job too. It's not like he can devote all of his time over there, so.
I think like Mike said, though, that adding that statement that the actual people doing the work are on board with this and supportive of this carries a lot more weight than all of us here at this board. 'Cause
No question. And potentially within the first week or two of January, we may have an interim chief of emergency services of the whole thing. And we're gonna start operating as to what we want to become right now. That's the goal.
Reference on the voting business with the public. It was after the Great Purge back in 2000. And the voters actually voted
The
that
purge was in '03.
whatever it was. The long and short of it was that
Before my
the
time.
voters actually voted that the town could not hire any full-time employees without permission from the vote. And then they specifically said, and the fire chief has to be a volunteer, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of that's changed, I guess.
Yeah, so Leslie Manser is adamant that it went in the 1980s and it hasn't changed since then. I'll let you argue with him. Yeah. All right, are we gonna move on?
So to your point, I think, yeah, maybe how to think about this, right? I don't wanna go through and try to cut money if we don't have to, but we also need an answer to this question, so. But I also don't wanna punt some of the, maybe the low hanging fruit to the next meeting to take up time if we don't have to, so what does that look like? So like you said, go through, if anybody has any strong feelings one way or another on a particular department, let's talk about it, if not, let's move on.
That's
Right?
what I
I
think.
mean,
Well, it's almost like the straw poll mindset
I don't
right
think
now.
We have to revisit every line and let somebody object. To something or have the request for change.
I need 18 specific lines, that's it.
The what?
And I'd be happy if you want to, if there's a consensus, I don't know if there is or not. You go with the idea that the 90,000 stays in the budget and that the phrasing that you allow it to happen legally.
Right.
And you gotta be careful with saying that the fire department members strongly support this. I don't think that's a lot, but what you could do is make sure it's clear to everybody somehow that the fire department strongly supports it.
Well, I would just have them sign a letter of support and have all the signatures, and it'd be very simple
Put it in
that
the
way.
town report.
Right, exactly. I mean, it would be that simple, as just to make sure everybody's aware, everybody's
So
on
you
board.
Get rid of that issue, if there's a consensus, the difference is, right now, I think that the fire chief was, the full price of the fire chief, was something like $50,000 or $60,000. So the difference between the 50 or 60,000 and the 90,000 isn't big enough for me to worry about. You gotta get somebody that knows what they're doing. And 90,000 is the low end of getting
So are
somebody.
you making a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we leave the full-time chief in the budget, in the operating budget, and that the warrant article be restricted to the legal authorization to hire.
And I don't know if you want to add, we're gonna put the highway full-time piece in there as well.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that, but you don't think you have to do that. I mean, you don't have to have an article, I just do it.
It was just an expense that we were concerned about at the time, and were we gonna pull it out and let the voters pick?
I didn't question it, like 18 minutes.
I will second the motion.
all right. So we've just discussed it a bunch, any further comments on that? No?
So just to clarify, you want both the fire chief and the building's maintenance moved into the operating budget and taken out of the warrant articles?
Yes.
I think, well, I don't think Mike said maintenance position, did
I
he?
didn't say maintenance on
I
purpose.
think,
I like yes.
well, so I'm not running the meeting, I'm sorry, Nate.
Go right ahead.
So I think what we'll do is vote on the motion that's on the floor unless somebody wants to vote to amend it. And then, John, if you want to make another one, we'd be happy to entertain that.
The motion on the floor is limited to the fire chief position.
That's what it is right now, yeah. I think you're on a.
All right, so the motion's on the floor, it's been seconded, any, no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, okay.
You want to spend the next half hour on the building, or can we leave that?
No, you have to look at me, not me.
I think there's a difference between, it's like 70 or 80,000 for the maintenance person, plus benefits. So it's a big amount of money, John, so at least like the talk to us.
We need this guy. We've never had this guy.
Or-
Well, I will, in that particular case, it's more like 80,000 including benefits.
Including benefits?
Yeah. Because you're not gonna be paying somebody an $80,000 salary to be the maintenance guy in town. So, and I think the benefits are running close to 30 right now.
All right, so let's jump down to that part of the budget, where, that's gonna be under the,
It's a separate line, right?
under highway.
No, highway.
It was under the warrant articles, I
The
think.
warrant.
It's in the warrant.
Okay.
Highway, I don't have any problems, with. It's already in.
So John, if I understand your point correctly, you would like, well, you haven't made a motion, but if you were going to make a motion,
I will make a motion.
something along the lines of taking it from the warrant article and putting it into the operating budget.
I just moved what he said.
It's on page 21, by the way.
What's the total amount with benefits?
81,844.
That's not what benefits, unless you're screwing around with your finances.
Maybe not around with our finance.
I believe,
Scared me.
Gary
You should
Ann,
not imply that.
Gary Ann, the $81,000 for the building and grounds person included benefits, correct?
Yeah, that's the total cost to the employee.
Yeah.
Like retirement benefits, taxes, all that.
That's in a warrant article we haven't seen.
Correct.
Okay.
So the question is, do we want to include it here or have it as a warrant article? And John's moving that we add it in here.
Into the budget.
drop it as a warrant.
I mean, I
But
could do
nobody
this.
seconded it.
Yeah, I guess
so
after
we
we get
can't
second,
discuss
I'll ask.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
For discussion.
Discuss it.
Okay.
But
Can somebody, I don't remember discussing this person. I saw it on Carrie Ann's summary of the changes, but I don't remember discussing this person. This year, did we?
it's a warrant of it.
It's a warrant article, but we haven't, this group hasn't discussed this person.
No, because it hadn't been, we had the warrant art, we have it in a total of dollars, but we didn't have the discussion because it was in the next phase.
So I think what Mike is
So
trying
what's
to
the-
say is he wants information on it before he can vote. He wants to know
Exactly.
whatever it's
Like,
proposed.
who, is this new work? Is this somebody that has been, someone else?
Well,
The fire
a
people
weird-
doing this work out of the goodness of his, on a Sunday?
Nobody's doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, so right
maybe
now,
that
we,
needs to be done.
um, so currently, everybody talks like we have a maintenance person. And the person that used to do maintenance is now regularly working 24 hours a week at the transfer station. And the majority of the remaining time is spent in cemeteries and very minimal hours are spent actually doing buildings maintenance stuff. So we used to have the position and it kind of got split out and moved to other places. So with the state of our buildings, we're trying to actually hire a dedicated building maintenance person that can change light bulbs and do all the regular maintenance stuff for us. So the total cost of adding that entire position with benefits and retirement and everything is that $81,000 that we had in there as a warrant article, just kind of like, hey, we would like to add this to staff. How should we handle it? And that's where we're at.
And it was actually proposed, it was proposed last year at one point. And then the other issue is like, we end up calling our guys, the water and sewer department over at the town hall if we have a clogged toilet or, if somebody has an issue. We don't have anybody doing regular maintenance and we have locks deteriorating, we have doors that don't close, like there's just a ton of things that need to be done that would have, it just hasn't been done in a while.
And you think that this person could be kept busy full time? They're
Yes.
gonna add $20,000 worth of benefits a year?
You are-
forever
you-
and ever?
Well, yes, believe me, yes.
I mean, you
And
can-
it's,
could you
it
sub it,
also
could you
used-
sub this work out, or is this person better being hired in the highway department that could work half-time as a maintenance person and the rest of the time in the highway department?
Typically, the maintenance person did work a little bit with the highway department and did like plowing of parking lots and things like that to assist. But at the end of the day, there's been significant deferral of maintenance that
I
of things
get
that need
that.
to be done. And
I-
like, we have a boiler room full of flat files, paper that you're not supposed to have in a boiler room. We got.
Planning building.
Is there a scope of work?
It's like there's, huh?
Is there a scope of work?
Fix what's broken. I mean, he's a big guy.
I mean,
That
a job description, we have it, there is somewhere a job description, we would have to reinvent that, but you got, we have the museum. We have the bathrooms down there, we have the meeting house, there's,
You got the log cabin.
yeah, we got the log cabin, like, we gotta. Actually, this winter, we're hoping to use the highway guys to get a couple of dumpsters, cause the metal company that we're using with the dumpsters, they'll put them there for free and then they just send us money for the weight. There's a whole bunch of shelves in there, we're gonna start trying to get that building emptied.
I know. a
Whether or
volunteer-
not we are ultimately gonna use it, we gotta get the thing cleaned out. It's a hazard at this point. We gotta get them weather tight.
I've been trying to volunteer for years here, but I don't get a call.
Well,
Just saying.
okay,
And all I'm trying to say is, what's the salary breakout on this individual? That's why I said about the fill of work.
We ought to leave this one until the next week.
that's fine.
16,
Yeah,
20.
because we haven't seen it and I'm not,
Okay.
I'm not prepared to, vote. I mean, this is the first I've heard.
Okay,
Well, we have a motion in a second, so we at least have to vote. on
Yeah,
it.
we should, unless John wants to withdraw his
I
motion.
think.
Tom Select is to do this job.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna speak to that.
Well, that was like 15 years ago, is it relevant?
No, it was 15 years.
It was 15 years ago.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Time flies, John. So wait, before we move on, Brian had a question. What's the proposed salary for this?
well, it's in
hiring this
the,
Position.
I believe it was in the $25 an hour range.
Okay,
Cause it works out to about 50 plus the benefits.
okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are we gonna start the discussion and if we're not, if we're gonna vote on this, I wanna keep discussing. If we're not, then I don't care.
Well, we got a motion and a second on the floor, so
I can pull my second.
unless it's withdrawn, then we're gonna vote on it.
But we're still in
We got
discussion, right?
discussion. So
Yeah.
I did work with Tom Gillette, he was here full time. And the only problem with that position was. At least half of Tom Gillette's time was spent on design work and more esoteric. Intellectual repairs as opposed to repairs. There was a work order system in place. And he'd been in it for a couple of years and he was at least a year behind on the work. So there was a full-blown form, the form had to be filled out by somebody in the department, said we need this done. And it became brutal. In terms of the work not getting done, and then the town decided, okay, we'll just hire people to do it. If you've got a lock, get a locksmith, if you've got electrical, get an electrician. And that, for me, as an individual sitting here 14, 15 years later. Is still pretty much the same argument. I don't know what's better, but I do know this. I don't wanna hire somebody. Who's gonna intellectualize the repairs and assign it to another company to come in to do it. And get paid $50,000 a year.
Well, I think we don't have control over that at this
You
level.
do a
so-
select.
Well, we,
Elect people.
This
select-
committee does not, and you could never anticipate how someone is going to act once you hire them, so.
but I will say that the intent is not to farm everything out. There are things that are beyond any regular maintenance guy. You know, I don't want them in high voltage panels and things like that. Cause then it just becomes a hazard,
It's
but
illegal.
what's that?
It's a commercial building. It's
Correct.
illegal for them
That's
to
right.
play on the pen.
Right, so I'm saying, it's like, you know, but the fact is, you know, just the number of calls we're getting and things that aren't getting addressed. Is pretty huge, and the fact of the matter is, you know, I would anticipate this job. Will not be. You know, just in this little pathway, I mean, I can see. Expansion, they may have to go help at a cemetery once in a while, like, they're gonna have to be able to. Be modified, they're gonna have to be able to help the highway department if we're. Building something that's not road related.
That was my next question.
You
Who's
know.
the person report to? Is that? you?
Well, it would be. What we call the highway supervisor, because he would be like kind of buildings and grounds, it should be all under that umbrella, because they're coordinating equipment, they're coordinating everything, so. That's where that ultimately should lie.
I think the flexibility that you just alluded to would be really important to
Oh.
gather support.
Yeah, it's,
You know, if he's got nothing to do and he just sits there, the job description's gotta be defined
Oh,
such that. It can
absolutely,
be deployed
anywhere,
anywhere.
that's correct, and in this town, that's the one thing, it's gonna be a diverse workload, because it's. There's nothing straight, like, we have an upside down dugout at the, behind the school. I mean, there's things that need addressing.
That's cool, I think it's out there.
Second after I fill my second. So I'm pulling my second, so you can develop a job description,
Okay.
you can all consider and give us the details
You
on
can
how
pull a
it's.
second.
Yeah, sure, why not? You can pull the vote.
We all are saying the same thing,
Okay.
we're all adults, we could just vote, and people are probably going to abstain, right? I mean, or say no.
Well, the
I'll say
reality
no.
is, the only thing I'll say is,
Right now.
if we're putting the job description in and we said, you know, for the purposes of the conversation, we would put it in the budget, we will have it in the budget and you will have a job description. And if we're cutting things in the budget next time, that's one that'll get cut.
Well,
You know what I mean? It's like, it's like that. I mean, the reality is,
Let's take a vote. Have it
So
voted.
we're voting on moving it into the
Are you
budget.
going to include this warrant article be limited to legal concerns like you did in the fire chief or not in this order?
this one's not, this is good, there not be a warrant article anymore.
Aren't you glad I asked then?
Yes.
I'll just roll call it because it'll be easier. So the motion is to take the job description from the warrant article we have not seen and move it into the budget.
With the backup and the job description to come at the next meeting, so you can discuss it.
So I'm gonna roll call it. Mike?
So I'm gonna say no, because I think I'm voting no correctly, because I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, it
next
can always
time.
be brought up again. I'm gonna vote no. Mike?
I'm gonna vote no. I really want the position.
Right,
Don't get me-
yeah.
Yeah, but we don't have all the details.
Karen?
I guess no, so they can do this again.
John?
Yes.
No?
I'm gonna abstain.
Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 no's and 1 yes and 1 abstention.
Okay, so you'll have it,
Motion fails.
we'll deal with that for the next meeting.
Again, if you made it as a warrant article.
Right.
And then, so the money would go into the,
It's already in there
in
right now.
there as a. It's already in there.
It's in the
expense is
operations budget.
already, the expense is already there.
Correct, because this is not a position that has to be created by warrant article. This is just, it was there because it was an ad.
As a warrant article, so it's already in the budget.
Yes.
If it's a warrant article and that does not pass,
Then
and then
it comes out, right?
Yes.
But,
that's the difference between including or not.
but right now, with the figures we're looking at, it's in.
Let's, first, my, and I'm in the same place actually where Mike is. It's like, I want to find my 140 so we can know what conversation we're having.
Like doing numbers. I'll talk again.
I get that, but I'm just talking about whether the money already, it's already shown up.
Yeah.
That's my.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I say something. I looked at last year's, I scanned it, last year's, the same meeting.
Yeah.
And there were a boatload of motions there.
Yeah.
Makes me think maybe you voted on individuals. You can do a consensus, so I can create really one standard approval, a motion of every single one, but you don't have to deal with that because you sort of passed them as one.
I feel like we did it last year because somebody was remote and wanted to vote. There was some reason why we were doing a roll call on every single
Tell you
thing.
may or may not. But I could do that where you guys.
And do you-
I'll throw it in.
And my next question would be, because when you're looking at your line items, once we're done having the conversation, if we gave you the summary, which just gives you the totals of each department, would that be easier to deal with than the whole?
I think it
Package.
would, because then you can still go, if somebody
You-
has an issue.
you go
and wants to
back.
Raise it, you can
Yeah.
still go back into the document.
Correct. It was just, makes it just a simpler process, I think.
Because those of us that are gonna have comments
Mhm.
have their thing with the marks on it.
Right. Well, that way, but if you're just doing a vote and there's no comment, you can just look across the paper.
Okay, so we've dealt with 2 issues in 2 departments, or not really, one in a department, one not really.
And the only, you come back to the 146 we got. Like when I look at this, I see, okay. Okay, but the 146 amounts to 31.61 of the tax rate. So that's why it's an issue.
No, it's an issue. We
And
wanted
you know,
this,
I'm looking at it, my tier 2 concerns were full-time employees.
Yeah.
And so that's. So
those are the things that we will address.
Okay.
I mean, we're narrowing the list.
So do we want to even embark
yeah,
on
let's
this?
do it.
Or do we wanna wait for a summary? What does everybody wanna do?
I wanna talk about page 6 at some point.
Oh, that was the one you were doing before, right?
Budget page 6, non-revenue.
Yeah.
Can I propose something?
You may.
If we're waiting for an answer about this, there is $140,000. I think, wouldn't it be best instead of trying to cut things to say, does anyone have a specific concern about one item and we can address
I
that?
do.
Does anyone besides?
No, do your
John?
page 6
He does,
one.
and then I have.
I think that's a great
I
point.
got 10.
Yeah, so we'll start with the fewer and go to the greater.
But are they things that, I just wanna, I mean, obviously, there's no speech, but are these things that we are looking at tonight because we think that the 140 is incorrect, or because we truly have a problem with the money that we're spending on that?
Mine is simple. There's $2,000 in the budget again. Thank you very much for the Goose Pond Lake Association, which goes towards subsidizing the Lake Coast program, which is part of the boat inspection program. We're not gonna have water this year. I'm 95% sure. I'll know more tomorrow, but I'm 95% sure that the contractor has shit the bed a little bit, and the gate's not gonna go in on time, the lake's not gonna refill on time, so we're not gonna have, and even if we have half the water, that's not enough to have a boat ramp. So we could take that $2,000 out of the budget again for next year.
Well, you'll know tomorrow. I
I'll
mean,
know
because
tomorrow.
the last schedule I saw they sent me a few months ago that said May 15th or something.
On Monday, DES got an email from the contractor saying he was packing it up and going home for a few months.
Okay,
And they're at a meeting tomorrow to try to reverse that. I wrote a letter to the three brothers that own the damn company, multi-billion-dollar company. I did get a response, believe it or not, within a couple hours. But that doesn't mean they're gonna reverse things, but it doesn't matter, because that even if they don't put the gates in until the end of January. We were told they were gonna be going in by Christmas. There's not gonna be enough water in the lake. We need the snow and the rain. So anyway, you can take that 2,000 out of the bill.
What's that, where's that line item, Mike?
It's on page 18 in the recreation budget. You did it last year too, because we got rains for this year, so it's 2 years in a row we haven't.
Why don't we do it, Sadie said, just go for wheels, so we can something about it.
well, John still wants to talk about page 6.
So we need to make that adjustment for the line item.
I take two after.
Take 2,000 out.
I
Down to
mean,
one.
Page 19.
have we voted on other adjustments that we've made, or if it's just, hey, if somebody has.
We haven't actually.
Yeah.
So if somebody has an objection, yell it out and then we'll have. a motion.
Yeah,
Okay,
otherwise we're just agreeing that that we're gonna vote on the bottom line. item.
right. So page 18, right, right?
It's page 18.
You with Mike, next on this, it looks like it's in 19.
Oh, I'm looking.
Page
Right.
19, okay, so I'm crossing that off.
Rec Canaan Lake, so.
Goose
Pond.
Yeah, right, not Canaan.
Yeah, Canaan Lake might get upset.
All right, well, oh,
Canaan Lake might-
Sorry, there weren't 4 zeros
There's a lot of
involved.
water over Goose Pond.
John Bergeron, do you have something
I do.
on page 6?
What a surprise.
As I look at all the government building things, and each little building has something, but I don't see anywhere in here the overall maintenance, and things fail. Jeff just talked about doors falling off and locks breaking, and run-of-the-mill stuff happens. And if you get over to, EOC on the next page, maybe we have,
Wait, oh, there's 10 grand in there, John.
I know, but they've got a project,
Oh,
Conference Room Tech Upgrade,
no, I'm sorry, there's a government buildings repair and maintenance.
is that?
Meeting house, oh,
19410 on page 6, 10,000.
Okay. So that's insufficient in my mind, that's the whole town.
That's increased.
no, because there's one in each building has a regular maintenance
This
budget.
is town hall only.
Where do you see that?
Oh, it does say that.
So town hall's got 10,000. I guess that's where.
Then there's GB Meeting House repairs for 10,000.
Where's that?
It's 4194 11,430.
That's not heat installation?
And what is heat installation?
It says repairs. It's. I don't know why that note, well, that was one of the things we considered was possibly putting some heat in there, but we had it in there as a repair budget anyway. That's not for that necessarily that item.
Can we move to strike PH only?
And on the 10,
Where are you?
430.
10-430, it says government building repairs and maintenance, it doesn't say a building per se, it's in the note under it that says TH. which is town
I think-
office. Can we just
And
leave,
it says broken out to individual buildings.
so that would be anything in the town that needed a repair. It may all be in the town office, but
Well, there's town office, there's the meeting house repairs, museum repairs. Each building has,
Doesn't earmark, doesn't have any.
no, the note doesn't have.
Force
to
or
be
anything like
in.
that.
yeah, we don't need the, you just want to take the note out, that's fine.
So John, that means that on that one, with the 10-430, this is government buildings, repairs and maintenance. The legal statement is that it can be used for anything on building repairs and maintenance in the home. It's on a government building.
And we have some 10,000 already listed just for the meeting house too, so
The museum has a portion which needs to be repaired.
that will come out of the capital, that will come out of the reserve fund. Because that will be a capital improvement, not a repair necessarily, depends on what's involved. And the museum,
Tech upgrade is not a capital improvement. Are we on that one?
Page 7.
I'm on government buildings, we've broken out government buildings, so everybody has their own little thing.
USC.
Yeah, and if you add up all the government building 430 lines, it totals 70,000, which is the exact same as the 2024 budget. So we just proportioned it out to the individual buildings instead of lumping everything into one generic line.
A total of 430s. Is it on other pages?
yes, it's on multiple pages.
Yeah, yeah.
Does that include 660?
What's 660?
You got
25.
4194-10-660.
Inspections and preventative maintenance.
That is,
that are
is
just
that 25 in the 70, whatever?
No, I was only totaling the accounts that end in the 430, so 660 would have its own subtotal.
So 430 is on, in other areas other than government buildings? Yes.
It's
Yes,
in,
there's 10,000 for general building repairs, 10,000 for meeting house, 4,000 for the senior center, 10,000 for the EOC, 5,000 for the police building portion of it, 6,000 for the fire department building, and then 25,000 is listed under there's a mechanic line that ends in 430, but that's also included in the 2024 numbers. So the 430 accounts are totaling the same as they did this year.
Yeah, that's,
But she can just,
glad you're there, Carrie Ann.
she knows all those numbers like in her head by heart, like, that's crazy.
Well, it's the fancy software system you guys let me put in place. I can run this.
Okay. I'm satisfied.
Okay.
I have an objection to the EOC technology.
the EOC what?
EOC technology,
Tell us what page.
same page, that's why I'm raising it, because it's on page 7.
Yes.
There was already money going into upgrades elsewhere for EOC for phone and internet of 5,000. In light of the budget going up, I think we ought to fund this year. I assume it's for things like whiteboards, electronic whiteboards and stuff like that. And with all the other things, we've added a whole lot of stuff.
That's just 10,000.
Yeah. So I'm not in favor and I won't vote for that piece.
Do you wanna,
Do you wanna ask what
Can
it's
you,
for?
yeah, can you
Sure,
describe
I'll
what that's
support.
for?
Carrie Ann, what was I forget now what that was specifically for.
Everybody's been wanting a better conferencing system in the EOC to make it more user-friendly for everybody else to run meetings. Like having a company come in and put screens for people to see towards the back and having them do-
The issue we have right now is this system dates back quite a ways and it's not,
And that's not a camera.
yeah, it's like the fact of the matter is we're basically using a projector on a whiteboard, which makes reflection. You can't see when you put different things up. That should be a monitor. We don't even need those pieces there. It's just, do we want to upgrade the system so that it becomes a true interactive system that, because we have meetings here with FEMA people, we have a lot of meetings where people are on Zoom and it's just, the question is, should we upgrade?
You gotta put those TVs on the long wall.
But it's still, the biggest issue is the guts of it need to all be upgraded. That's where most of the cost is.
This is a whiteboard now,
Yes,
or a smartboard?
that's just a whiteboard. It's not a smart board. That's just basically, that's a screen that came out of the ceiling, for lack of a better word. So it's just, it's something that, and I understand where you are. It's something that we should be looking to.
Yeah.
But, you know, we have a lot of things we have to deal with at this point.
Especially since it's not, the EOC is a misnomer. It's meeting place.
Yeah.
We don't use the meeting hall for meetings, so we use this place. So it's not just
They
EOC.
got a lot of grant money, so they named it where the grant money came from.
The Emergency Operations Center, this is in the event of
I get that.
the disaster, this is
And
the,
that's
this
your
is
meat
the
and
center.
potatoes, But the 10 grand is for a larger audience than just.
Well, it's for
EOC.
an audience and also the fact that now, since so much has gone where you have, you know, teleconferencing,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it's one of those types of issues and should it be
Yeah.
a little smarter than it is?
You think
Well,
that
at some point it's gonna break.
would the next projector show the whole room? Because people on Zoom only see right
Well,
here.
That's
the
the goal.
There's the issues, and also there should be microphones
Yeah.
right through the back, like
Yes.
typically you put them. And it's not, and
Yeah.
we did one for less than $10,000 where I was. It's just, you know, the microphones are, you can hear the people in the back, they
Yeah.
can see. And because we have those two extra TVs, we could actually put one somewhere further back so people could see it. It just, and it's the brains of it.
We've tried numerous of times to get that to adjust, we just can't, it's not made for this. He says.
And there's, and there's things that, you know, and I'm sure everybody's heard of the owl and stuff like that. There's items that when you're talking, it will zoom to you.
Yeah.
You know, and look at you, you know, is it a dire emergency? No.
Are you working off a quote from something? For the 10 grand,
No, not at this time.
just general number.
I'm still opposed to the concept with all the increases we're putting in. We're going 3 new people. We have a lot of new additional expenses we haven't before.
And
I think all that is absolutely critical. I think that would be nice to do. I think it would be nice for somebody to write a grant and do it. I mean, I'd be in favor of moving it down to $1. I'd be in favor, because I'm gonna talk about the contingency fund. I'd be in favor of keeping the contingency fund at 10 grand, put $1 there. And if you don't spend a contingency fund, take it out of the contingency fund.
That's a good idea.
But I really don't, I really think that, I personally feel like I'm bending over and say, okay, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and this. Well, I'll agree with it.
Okay, so make a motion.
I will make a motion to reduce the amount to $1.
I'll second that. Any further discussion on that?
Has the select board weighed in on that? Have you guys had discussions about that specific line?
No. Enough.
Because you have the most important meetings in town using this room and that's just
Well, not, I wouldn't say it's the most important meeting, but.
the head of the government.
But the committee is the most important meeting.
I mean, this
Yeah.
room is used for a lot, not just town meetings. So,
Somebody second that, please.
yes,
Yeah.
they did.
Anybody else want to chime in on that?
You have 50,000 in this budget someplace of a
The
emergency fund.
The
I got this
contingency
on my
fund.
list, you can get there.
And that could come, this could come out of that.
It could, if it had to, but you know, there's always something that goes awry that's not budgeted for, and that's what that's for. And it's also for slowly, if we don't use all of it, some of it helps our undesignated fund balance.
Right.
Like 2 years ago, we put over $50,000 into one of the dump trucks in 1 year.
I remember it was worth $20,000.
Yeah,
When I first got here, the very first budget I encountered, I had nothing to do with, it was $600,000 of funds that were never used a year
Mhm.
on a $2 million budget. I really am totally opposed to just, if we think we ought to do it someday, we want the budget today. So I think there ought to be some deferral until you get there, either because you got money left at the end of the year, you know, Sadie's made a strong position that we're gonna fund the capital reserves out of taxes. Okay, we're gonna fund the taxpayer, use the taxpayers to fund the capital reserves, I'll go with that. But then I don't wanna fund additional want lists in this thing beyond that.
Okay.
I'm just, out of all those lines, there's only about 10 that I really give a damn about, that's one of them.
So we know,
You made a motion to take it out,
Motion
and
and
no, and that's not offensive, I
Drop it
mean,
to
it is what
$1.
it
I'm
is.
sorry if it is, I can't help it.
Well, it's not.
well, you're just gonna go ahead and move on the vote, and I'll start on this side. Sadie, I'm gonna roll call.
I'm gonna vote no.
Joe?
How about yes?
Joe? Yes.
What's the
The motion is to reduce it to $1.
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I'll be yes.
Abstain.
Okay, so we got 2 no's and the rest yeses.
You're a no?
No, I wanna leave it at 10,000.
Yeah.
Right, you got it right.
Yeah.
Did I change my vote?
Well, was your intent to not, what was your intent?
My intent was to spend 10,000.
Okay, so you wanna change your vote to no. And so that makes it 4-3, and the motion passes.
It's, right, you voted to reduce.
You were,
$2.
it's now down.
No, it's not ready to it.
Clear as mud.
All right, great. Next one?
Well, might as well go to the contingency one.
Yeah, all right.
Where's that?
The way the law works on contingencies is you can, the board of selectmen can select people. Can I get inside the head if I say anything? Can spend money out of any account as long as we got cash in the budget.
Use select as a descriptor.
Select, just select.
Not, don't start with board, start with the description of what the board is. And then
The
you won't have to
select
screw it up. The select board.
It's not, that's all, it's all they do something.
We have a selectman in the room.
You know, we have some-
I'm sorry.
Okay, so.
One that wants to go home.
Absolutely. What page are we on, Mike?
Page 3,
Page 8?
Your pneumonia is not contagious, is it?
no,
Cause Nate just got over something.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
I'm not worried. That thing doesn't do anything anyway.
Well, that's probably.
So it's 50,000, I'm prepared to have some contingency fund called 10. I just. Oh,
All right, so are you making a motion?
yes, I'm making a motion to change it from 50 to 10. And the logic is what I said, we've got, this is a larger, I understand it looks smaller, but that's for reasons of what happened last year when there was a hell of a lot of spending that took place. But overall, it's still a lot higher than a $6 or $7 tax rate, when we're close to $9. So I'm trying to show some restraint somewhere in this budget. All my lines together are about $60,000 or $70,000 at this point, so this isn't a lot of money. But it's a statement saying, okay, we think we ought to have some contingency funds, and my statement back is, yes, we'll have some. But if you need to have an emergency, find something else you can defer, move that money in to take care of the emergency through the contingency.
And sometimes when you defer things, it ultimately costs significantly more.
So, and I just, my only comment to that is. I would agree with the argument if we have to find $140,000. If we don't, and we're in that 6, 7, 8%, then I think it is. Ultimately, it's to the town's benefit to be at a place like this for a contingency fund until we actually get some undesignated fund balance.
How about if I stipulate that if we resolve the 146. I would ask that we, by consensus, go back and look at any of the changes we made and go back.
Yes, it's definitely open in that discussion. My thing is. Add a 7.5% or 8% increase, which is kind of expected. That is someplace we need to be, and that 50,000, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't that a warrant article last year? That we created the contingency fund,
Mhm.
and did we fund it? No, we just created
I
it.
think, actually, I don't remember. I don't-
Carrie Ann, did we fund that?
With $1,000.
Okay, so
So
we
it's-
just created it, okay. So, but at the end of the day. It's also, you're hoping you're putting $20,000 or $30,000 into undesignated funds if everything goes well. It's part of that process, but. I would agree with that stipulation.
Or what about if we just revisit this one?
Revisit it, I'll put them on the table, revisit.
Well, I mean, I think that probably be that whole 60 or 70,000, because that's actually half of what we're talking about.
It could,
Yeah,
Oh, by the way, I don't want to oppose what you're doing on the selectmen's. Select. God,
Select
I'm gonna
board,
die before I
the
do
select
this.
board.
About the select budget.
For the select board's budget.
Yeah.
okay. I'm not sure, I don't know how that works. I know that in the past, I think it's the budget committee that has to do that by a specific vote. It's not, you can't propose your own pay increase.
Basically, not recommended. That's your bill.
It has to come from the budget committee.
Wait,
Should wait on it.
are we on the contingency fund?
No, it's just,
I'm ADHD and I can't even follow where.
forget it, I'll say that, just get with the Lord.
Okay,
I haven't seconded, nobody seconded the motion.
No, I don't think this is.
Oh, yeah,
well, and it's the amended motion, I think, right?
there's no.
Where?
You didn't even.
So it's just me. making
Just
a
you
motion?
make a motion to drop it to 10 grand.
We said we-
Well, if we're gonna revisit it, you know, we can have, bringing these items up is a good conversation,
Okay,
but
I
maybe.
make
if you
a
wanna-
motion that we consider it after we know what the 146,000.
Right.
There you go.
All right,
Well,
I'll
we're
second.
doing it again anyway, so.
God damn it, can we just move on?
Just move on to the motion.
What motion?
So wait, Mike, are you?
I'm trying to expedite the process,
Withdraw.
otherwise we gotta go
Withdraw.
home and not consider any of those. Look, here are my issues, I got a problem with the appraiser, I got a problem with the lawyer, I got a problem with the conference room tech, I got a problem
We
with
addressed that
the
one.
salt. I got a problem with the welfare rent, but we changed that already, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay, and I had a problem with the dirt, no, that's it. It was the salt.
So what was the salt? Cause they basically just took the new price and calculated the volume they've been buying.
Okay, then I don't have a problem.
I mean, that's just what it was.
It's in the summary.
Yeah.
I didn't see that, I'm sorry.
Okay,
What is-
so-
Well, we reduced it by 10 grand, I
10
think.
grand.
Yeah,
Okay, then I only wanted to reduce it by 10 grand,
well, that's what we did.
okay. So I don't have a problem with
All right, if that's it,
that. Assessment, yeah, so how much do you think you have in the capital reserves for the value? How much was the value, how much did it cost for the assessor last year?
Oh, the cost for their contract?
Yeah.
It's 30 something. You have that handy, Carrie Ann?
I have the email from Rebel, hang on.
So, one thing I wanna point out, last year was the first year $20,000 was put into the fund so that we would be doing the reassessment.
But there were years of that. You had 6,000 one in the year before, you had 24,000 last year, and you got 27,000 this year.
Right, because that's the difference in what we have to have by the end of next year.
Okay,
The problem we have right now is the state is saying we have to reassess a year
Okay.
early.
what do they give you for a quote to do the 5 year?
Well, they gave us a quote to do it right now, this next year, the same thing, 75 grand.
Okay, so you got 75 plus 38, that's what you need.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Okay, 113, does that
Mhm.
sound about right?
Yeah.
Okay, and how much do you think you have between what's voted this year, what was voted last year, what was voted the year before?
My understanding is there's 20 or 20, I think it's 20,000 in that fund, right, Carrie Ann?
You're wrong.
I'm just saying what's in the fund. I'm not asking what
The
was,
capital reserve fund only has just over 20,000 because we put the 20,000 in there. The assessor quoted us for 2025, $34,100. And then the reassessment was quoted at 75,000. So we divided what we don't have saved up for the reassessment. We divided it in half, added 27,500 to the operating budget contract appraiser line, and we're running the warrant article for the remaining 27,500 to make up the difference for the reassessment.
Trustees for trust funds reported the end, it was $6,000 in the account. The voters have authorized the 24,000, I think it was last year, to go into the account. That makes it $30,000. If this passes through the 27.5, you have 57.5 that's available for that annual assessment. Okay? And you can select board, select people, draw down on that account.
Mhm.
But they don't have to get voter approval. That's 57 out of the total. And we have 105. right? That you think the total cost is gonna be
75 and 34, 109.
109 minus the amount I quoted, which is what, 50? 24,
57.
27 is 52, 50.
57.
How much?
It's in the 50,
60, I think.
52 or something like that.
So what I'd like to see is to see that line where it says contract appraiser, 61.6 to say, I would say, 50. That's all I was looking for.
I just pulled up our Bar Harbor statement for month end of November and our reevaluation fund has $21,000 in it.
So what I'm hearing is the two issues are, we have to go back and find out, was there a $6,000 balance before that? But and whether it was transferred or not, because I don't, it doesn't sound like it was transferred.
It's in the town report. Look under the trustees and trust funds.
Right,
It says revaluation account. All
Okay.
the accounts got rolled, so I don't know
Right.
how you roll them, but that's what it said in the statement.
okay, well, that, we have to verify that $6,000,
But let's just take
But-
the numbers we heard. Okay, so you got 21.
but the 75 was ultimately over 2 years.
You don't need 75.
We needed 75, we needed half of 75 minus the whatever's in the fund, which is 21,000 right now, maybe it's 27,000. If the 6,000, I don't know where it went.
So again,
It's only
let's
$100,000.
look at the worst case scenario. I mean, he just made it better from my point of view, but if we think that it's 40,000 for the annual work,
It's 34 is what we have for a price.
it's 34,000 for annual work. Okay, and you added 75 to it, not 37.5, but the whole amount. Then you're at 109,000, right?
Mhm.
Against that, you would have, and that 75,000 covers all the costs of doing the 5th-year cycle.
Correct.
And you have 21,000 per carry in,
Right.
plus 27.5 that's in the warrant.
Well, 27.5 that's in the budget
It's in the warrant, well, you.
and in the warrant
it's a
article, it's in
warrant
both,
But it's in both, it's in both.
So it's in both,
yes.
so you got 3 times.
No, it's 55 total plus the 20 is what we had done.
There's 27 in the budget, 27 in the one.
And then the 34 was just an operations expense.
All right, so the long and short of this, do we agree that there's a least coming in from capital reserves, assuming the warrant article passes? There's at least 48.5. We agree on that?
Yes. But in the budget, there's the other 27, so, and then there's the 34. So I'm saying, we got a couple of different pots here.
All I was saying is, okay, let's use up the money that's in the capital reserves for revaluation and not just willy-nilly go and expend more.
Well, if you take the $34,000 is our operations expense,
Right,
okay? The 75,000 for the revaluation has 21 in there right now. You subtract 21 from 75, you're at 54. Okay, and that 54 divided by 2, we had half of it in the operations budget, half of it is a warrant article, because the intent was not to do the revaluation this year, but we've been told by the state we're supposed to, so we put the second half of it in the warrant article. If that makes sense to you.
well, it would,
If we don't get it, we're going to say we're gonna do the whole thing, put another 27 in the operations budget next year, like we did this year, and have no change, and then we'll be doing it in 25.
I mean, I'm only arguing about 10 grand. So there's a.
Well, and actually the 10 grand comes to where you're saying that you thought there was 24 in there and there was the 6,000, we don't know where it is. And that would be the 10 grand if that was the case. So if there was a $6,000 in a fund a couple of years ago, we don't know where it is because it's not currently in the fund. That's what we'd have to look at.
That's a whole different problem.
That's a separate whole conversation. It's the same as the warrant article that ran for when the Cozy Corners was sold, the 66,000 never got moved over.
I'm nickel and diming things here.
I understand.
And I got it. I understand how people feel about it. Who cares? I do. And the reason I care is because every time we add more funds overall in the budget, it means the taxes automatically will go up.
Correct.
Period. There isn't any ifs or buts. You find the 6 grand, tough shit, the taxes are still gonna go up.
Mhm.
So that's why it would be a nice idea if we could figure out a way to actually use the funds that the voters approved to use for the revaluation.
And we
That's all
are.
I'm arguing.
Yeah, and we are, because that's what we're doing, taking the 75,000, subtracting the 20. And then trying to split the other up into one's in the operations and the other. The 75,000 includes using the money that's voter approved.
But what are you doing with the 27.5 that's in the budget for this year's warrant?
That's half of the 55,000 we have to raise, because we have to have 75 grand. Like, I want to forget about the operations part, the 34. In my opinion, that's an in and out. We got to raise 34 and.
Yeah, so at the very least, it has to be 34.
Right.
Okay.
And then
Then
the
how do we pay-
75, we have $21,000 in the reserve fund. We have to pay 75.
What
We
are you
put,
gonna do with the 27.5 that they vote yes?
it's going into the reserve fund to pay for the revaluation.
Next year?
This year, if the warrant article is approved, the revaluation's happening this year,
Well, 25.
25.
In accordance.
I
with
don't
state.
want a tax increase on the 27.5 if that warrant article passes. And I'm not really warm and fuzzy and believing that that won't happen. Do you understand?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of doing it a year ahead. I mean, the goal was. We said we should be splitting the cost over the 2 years so that we could do it in our current planned year, which is 26. And the question is, because the state sent us the letter. Leave it up to the voters if they want to pay for it.
Okay, so let's go back to keeping it simple, which is it.
Right.
Put in the budget to 34, put in the budget half of the 75.
Well, half of the 75 minus 20.
Minus 21, right? Which is 27,000.
27,000.
Right.
So it's 60, all right, we'll leave it. Yeah.
So are you withdrawing your motion that
Yes.
doesn't even have a title? Okay.
Look, I'm sorry, if bothering you by questioning.
Bothering me. Well, your hostile tone bothers me a little bit, but
Okay. That's
the
what it is.
questions don't bother me. Do you have other things?
Now, these things, I guess. But these things that, how many more things, I'm just wondering, like, we wanna wait until we know, I mean, do.
'Cause I think you had three- you had like-
140 have bearing on these things.
They all do, yeah, there's, I mean, the biggest one, as you pointed out, is contingency.
Yes,
Right.
And frankly, if the contingency goes down to 10 and he stays there and everything else I have on this list goes away.
well, my thing is the whole conversation, because we've identified what the concerns were, and we've allayed a couple of them. And the issue now comes down to, okay, is there 140,000 we have to now address?
Well, do you
But
want?
there may not be.
And there may not be, and then this would all be done.
Could be a reporting issue too, I mean.
It just,
somebody-
the way he asked the question where he's looking, I want to be able to put my eyes on those numbers and say, here's where it came from.
It could be a software thing or
So I will,
the wrong cell guy.
I'll propose that we wait, for the rest of the Mike's points, and then if anybody else has any, we wait to see the answer. And I was wondering if in the interim, because our next meeting is not till the 6th. Is that something that if you come up with an answer, probably on Christmas Eve when you're working on it, figuring it out?
Well, just so you know,
So
there's
this
gonna
is
be
a-
about a 5-day window, and I have no idea where it is, where a grandchild in North Carolina will be born, and I will be on Mars.
If you happen to get it before the meeting, could you
You
send it
will,
out?
oh, absolutely. The goal right now, because I also, by tomorrow, I hope to have all the warrant articles sent off to the attorney just for some clarification, and there's 2 of them I'm not gonna touch because one was related to the special meeting for the water, and that's got a judge, so the attorney's got to do those 2. But you're gonna have everything ahead, because the goal is you can start to see this, because the other piece of this is any clarifications on the capital items that, that have come up, and we want to make sure we are addressing those at the next meeting as well.
So I guess on that point, is there any other issues within the budget that anybody has that doesn't have to do with reductions that may hinge upon this money that we're trying to just? Does anybody else want to bring anything else up that would be appropriate to discuss tonight before we know the answer to that question?
I just have one comment for the listener. I know you think I'm delusional. I'm certainly intense, there's no question about it. I do want to thank both the select board and you for carrying it to the extent you put this on. There were about 5 other changes that I had on my list. Beautiful, so kudos, you know, it meant to me that everybody was well intentioned to try to do their best to make the budget.
I mean, that's the goal at the end, is that what we present to the town is right. And that we minimize the pain, because we know we're underfunded, there's been tons of inflation, there's a lot of issues out there. And we need to catch up, and it's gonna take us 4 or 5 years to do it.
And I was excited beyond belief the last time we got the 7% increase. So I'm still excited if we can.
Well, if we're at 140, it's not as painful as where we were before.
The other comment is,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but, my job is, I view it as a budget committee member, is to make sure that we try to provide an adequately funded government. And there are a lot of changes, and I'm supporting the changes last year in paving and a bunch of other things. I support the changes this year. I am only concerned on the other half of that equation, which is who's paying the price.
Right.
And I have 28 residents in a park that I have to answer to, and I was answering to them last night at a board meeting now. And $400 increase for somebody in a mobile home, the mobile home's only worth 30,000, it's getting taxed at 50,000, it's not a good place to be. You're on a social security check, so I am concerned about low to moderate income people. So part of my job is bifurcated. Build a better town, to get it where it needs to be to provide the service. The other part is to do everything I can to at least show that we are trying desperately to hold down or defer some costs, where there isn't an immediate impact that makes the town worse to do it. The screen's there now, it's working now. It could wait 6 months, it could wait another year if it had to. It's not life or death. Almost everything else that you have in here, I think is critical to do. And I'm in favor.
Okay.
Anybody else, want to bring anything else before the board? No, all right, well then, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Just
Yeah.
one, are we continuing with the 6 o'clock meetings going forward?
So I think the 6th was going to
Just-
be at 6, I believe.
I think it was, and I'm just clarifying to
Much
make
like
sure.
this, like this, but
I much
I did
prefer.
at supper tonight though. Saved a burrito for last night, so I can eat it.
It's in the car.
At 5:30 on my way. Uh-oh, so you don't mind that we. No, 6 o'clock, I think, because they wants us to get out of here earlier than.
Yeah.
If we need it, we need it.
We need, exactly, if we need that extra hour or not, we know that that's what it is, but I'm hopeful that it'll be resolved and maybe won't be as painful as we thought it would be.
Very good.
All right, well, entertain a motion.
Thank you,
to
Carrie
adjourn.
Ann.
And they already moved.
I
Yes,
will,
thank
I make motion to adjourn.
You second? Oh, did we vote on it? Oh, I didn't even know that. All right, all those in favor, say aye.
You made the motion.
Aye. Vote.
It's already done.
The 30 at one point was at 95.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,